Hi everyone, Casey Scanlon here, bringing you a Lake of the Ozarks fishing report for the first week of June. The weather is hot. The water at the lake is starting to rise a little bit. We've been, pretty low water levels most of the spring and throughout this early summer here. So they're starting to bring the water up a little bit. There's been not very much current generation, which has the fish doing a lot of different things. You know, when they draw current, these fish, get on feeding places like points and brush piles and different objects underwater, and they bite. When you get a bait in front of them, they're pretty easy to catch. But we've had not very much rain, and the surrounding area, hasn't had a ton of rain, so we haven't had a lot of water flow through the lake, which has made the fishing a little bit tougher than normal. But I would just say that it's changed the fishing a little bit from what it normally is. Right now the fishing's good. We're going out there catching a lot of numbers, catching some quality fish as well, 4, 5, 6 pounders, but the consistency isn't there that I'd like to see. But we've got several different bites going on. The water is extremely clear right now throughout most of the lake. I've fished up to the 40-50 mile marker this week, all the way down to the dam, and the water's clear throughout the lake. We just haven't had a ton of rain, and that the fish can see a long ways. They're pretty educated. They're a little bit smarter than normal. They're realizing that these baits are not real. So you can see them on the Panoptics. Ton of fish out there, a lot of fish following the bait. So usually like to see a little more current, a little more color in the water, but the fishing's been good. Catching a lot of fish out there and doing it in a couple different ways. First way is the shallow bite. Shallow bite's been good. The fish finished up spawning a few weeks ago, and a lot of the fish are starting to move out off the bank, getting on docks, getting on brush piles, getting on points and things like that. But a lot of fish still in the backs of these pockets. The water coming up helps keep some of those fish up shallow. And there's a ton of bluegill up there, which has also helped keeping those fish up shallow. There's a ton of bluegill in the lake right now. They're everywhere. But the backs of these creeks and coves, they've got a lot more cover, a little bit more color in the water a lot of times. And there's a lot of bluegill back there. These fish are feeding on crawfish, bluegill, and shad right now. They're trying to rehabilitate after the spawn, get healthy again, and they're feeding on anything that they can come across. But bluegills are a good meal, big meal for those fish, and the bluegills are still spawning on the lake. There's bluegills everywhere. So what these fish like to do is, I think they wait for the bluegills to kind of act up, get out of the school, spook away a little bit, and then they'll eat them. So they just kind of hang around those bluegill beds. If you go down the bank, you'll either see those bright spots that'll indicate the bluegill beds, or you'll just simply see the bluegills on the surface right now. There's a lot of them just on the surface hovering around. If you see that, there's some bass around. So when we're up shallow, primarily throwing a top water around any kind of cover. Schooling activity, throw it up shallow next to the bank, work it out, boat docks, open water. Top water has been really good. Pop R has been great. And then when I'm fishing around the bluegill and just covering water in general, the Pop R and the Tackle HD Worldwide Buzzer have been a go-to for me. Early in the morning seems best on that. Once the sun gets up on that shallow bite, I'm going to switch more to like a jig and a worm. I'm going to fish a lot of boat docks. I'm going to fish any kind of lay down cover. With the water being clear, boat docks are going to be a prime target. Create a lot of shade. The fish can get underneath them and just kind of feel safe. So once the sun gets up later in the day, really start to target on those boat docks no matter what area of the lake you're in. Fish can be suspended near them. They can be on the bottom. Look for cover like brush piles and cables and stuff like that around those docks, and they'll be even better. But shaky head and the jig have been real go-to on those shallow fish once the sun gets up. The Tackle HD sticks worm, green pumpkin, watermelon has been really good, watermelon candy. What you want to do is either, if you're seeing those fish, you're fishing extremely shallow around those bluegill beds, wacky rig that thing, hook it right in the middle with a Hayabusa wacky hook, and you're going to catch a lot of fish. I like the 2-aught wacky hook, 10-pound Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon line attached to a 10 or 15-pound braided line is my main line. Got a Dreadnought spinning reel. That's got one of the smoothest drag systems out there. 6-gill rods and reels makes a great rod and reel, and that Dreadnought, the drag system on it's awesome. You know, you get a big fish on it close to the boat, you're gonna keep him pegged. Really important on a spinning rod, especially when you're fishing around quality fish. And we've got a lot of them here in the lake. So 10-pound leader, 10-pound, 15-pound braid, Hayabusa hook, wacky rig that in the middle, 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce jig head, works really good. And then, you know, a 1/2 ounce Trophy Bass Company Pro Jig. This is a summer craw pattern. I really like this when the fish start feeding on crawfish, bluegill. You know, this really mimics a bluegill well. We put a craw trailer on the back, or a chunk even would imitate a bluegill even better in my opinion. It has kind of that gliding action. But you know, these fish really like those bluegill. This is a big meal, and you know, it creates a big profile with that jig and it replicates a bluegill well. Gonna get some big bites. But anything green pumpkin, you know, brown, this summer craw pattern, it's gonna work for you. So just keep it in your hand, fish it shallow around cover, and you're gonna get some bites. So that's been working really well. Now, a lot of fish have been suspended. We've been throwing the Ned rig for suspended fish. We're basically taking this same sticks worm, breaking it in half, and putting it on a small Hayabusa jig head. I believe it's a 1/10 ounce. So pretty small, has a little fluorocarbon weed guard to kind of help it from getting hung up, but we're basically cutting this worm in half, and you get 2 worms out of it. So thread it straight on the jig head. I wish I had one handy here. We're throwing it a lot on our guided trips, you know, whether it's around a boat dock, whether it's around these points, secondary points, you know, or even in open water when I'm seeing them on my Garmin live scope. That bait with that light weight on that head falls really slow. It's a finesse presentation. The water's clear, so it's been working well. You know, talking about suspended fish, a lot of fish schooling, a lot of fish roaming around in open water. Top water has been great. The walking bait, Pop R, seem to be a little better than like the buzz bait in open water situations. So get it on a good rod. This is a 7-foot medium action rod, got a good tip. It's a Cypress from 6-gill, really affordable rod too, one of my favorites. Got it on a super fast 8-to-1 gear ratio reel, so you can throw it out there, reel those fish in quick, or when the fish are schooling over next to the boat, which is many a times the case, you throw out at a school of fish that's chasing shad, and then they come up, you know, 180 degrees the other direction, and you got to be quick on your retrieve. You got to get that bait out in front of those fish fast. They're feeding on those shad. The shad are swimming away from them when they're trying to eat them. So you got to kind of lead the fish on your cast, stay on your toes, and when they start, you know, feeding on them up on the surface, be quick to get in there. You know, you only got a few seconds to make that cast. Let it land in front of them and have that fish grab it. So top water bite's been good. Seeing some schooling activity out there, that's always fun. It's unpredictable. Got to kind of chase it around a little bit, but really fun way to catch them. Been throwing the Tackle HD swimmer on the back of jig head, 1/4 ounce jig head a lot of the time on a spinning rod on some of these guide trips. You know, it replicates a small shad, gets a lot of bites, and it's easy for them to throw. Throw it out there, let it sink down to the depth that they're at, and reel it back in. Just a nice, slow, steady retrieve on that. Been catching a lot of fish. Been just throwing natural colors, something that's fairly shad-like. And then been throwing a little bit bigger swim bait as well. You know, fish are suspended, so you're just trying to get a bait that you can kind of count down in front of these fish. With the Garmin Pan Optics, you can see that they're suspended at all different depths in the water column. So it's nice to have a bait like a jig or a swim bait or something you can kind of control the fall of a little bit to let it get down in front of them and then reel it in that strike zone. So that's been working a little bit. Variety of baits have been working. You know, since the fish are doing so many different things, there's a lot of stuff you can do out there, which makes it a really fun time to fish. You know, on most of our trips, we've been catching 30 to 50 fish, you know, in a 4-hour trip. but we got to move around a lot. You know, the fish get kind of educated once you catch a few, and you know, every once in a while you stumble upon a good group of them and you catch, you know, 5 or 10, you know, when they're active. So, but fishing's been good. The quality bites have basically the last week or so really been coming on the Pro Jig, that Trophy Bass Company Pro Jig, 20-pound Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon line, 8-to-1 gear ratio, Hamar reel from 6 Gill, and a 7.6 heavy action rod. You know, you making long casts, trying to catch big fish, pulling them out of heavy cover. You know, you want to have the right equipment for the job. The 6 Gill stuff is awesome. It's super light and definitely worth checking out. They got a lot of great sales. They usually do like a buy one, get one kind of deal on their rods and reels. But they're always offering something. So make sure to check out their social media and website. I'll put a link in my description here. But jig bite's been great. 3/4 ounce, 5/8 ounce jig when you're fishing out deeper off the bank. You know, looking at points, really looking around for fish. I'm driving around with my Nitro, got the Garmin's on, and I'm using my side view and down view to try to pinpoint the location of these fish. Once I see them out there, I'll drop the trolling motor, look at them on my Panoptics, and even kind of fine tune where they're at. Usually when they're out there, they're moving around, they're chasing bait. So having that Panoptics is super important because you can move around with the fish, make the cast to where they're at, and stay up on them. So it helps keep you really efficient out there. Long casts have been important in the clear water, but you can catch them on deep crankbait. You can catch them on that swim bait. You know, bottom baits like the jig, a heavy shaky head, you know, something like a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce shaky head, get it down there on the bottom. That's been good. Variety of baits. I think I mentioned the deep crankbait. We talked about the swim bait. Top water's working out there as well. The fish are up in the column. You know, they're willing to come 15, 20 feet to chase that bait. So a lot of stuff going on at the lake. You know, of course, night fishing bite this time of year picks up. Weather's hot. The boat traffic is pretty bad. Actually, last weekend wasn't too terrible, but the holiday weekend, a lot of boats out there. So best to get out if you can early and late. Get out there on the weekdays if possible as well, and you're going to catch a lot of fish. Fish are biting. You can fish any way you want to, shallow, deep, mid-range, chase around suspended fish, look at your live scope. You can do it all right now. It's a good time to be at the lake. I do have some availability the beginning of July for guided trips. Been getting a lot of calls about trips. I'm off limits for the lake for a Bassmaster Open tournament in August. So going to be doing as many trips as we can kind of in July. I've got some tournaments as well. So if you're interested in a trip, give me a call. We've been busy, but I'll get back to you and we'll try to fit you in if we can. So good luck to everyone out there. Stay safe on the water. Stay hydrated. It's hot out there, and good luck to you.